Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the University of Rhode Island's ITS Tech Day. This is June 24, 2020, the noon session, video and web conferencing best practices. I am your host, Bob Viens. You can see the rules regarding here, or the guidelines on the page here regarding this is a recorded session. And please hold your questions towards the end of the session. With that said, I am going to turn off this document that you were seeing in front of you, and we'll revert back to the PowerPoint presentation. So we're going to be talking about best practices for effective video conferencing. Obviously, the whole world has changed for all of us, and we are now working remotely, many of us, or in hybrid situations. And there's an awful lot of time being spent in participating in web conferencing or hosting web conferencing. And the first thing I want to do is let everybody know that this is going to be a platform agnostic setup here. I will be talking about things that will serve you well in everything from a Teams meeting in Microsoft to a WebEx meeting like you're in now to a Zoom meeting to a Google Meet or even a Google's Hangout meeting or any other of the varied platforms that you may be working on. It is of interesting note that the offerings that the university will be providing will be increasing in the near future. We are in the process of configuring Zoom that everybody will get, so stay tuned for information on that. It's not available for general release yet, but it's coming real soon, so excuse me. Sit tight for that. So these are my own general rules that I like to go by. I like to go by the 3 Ps, as I call them: plan, practice, and perform. And in general, this will apply to anything that you want to do from a web-based presentation. Doesn't matter what you're in or what you're presenting. It could be a PowerPoint presentation. It could be just simple Word documents or web pages. So what I like to think about is make a plan for your attendees, for your presentations, and for post-meeting needs. By post-meeting needs, I mean surveys or interactions following the fact. You should, in general, try and limit what attendees can see and do to limit distractions and interference. For instance, I set up this meeting so that when folks came into the meeting, I allowed them to turn their cameras on if they chose to. I did mute their audio when they came in, and I restricted them from being able to share any documentation or anything in order to limit possible distractions from this situation. Also, make sure you look at your presentation any video or software materials to the medium and to the audience. Remember that you are in a web-based platform talking with video and audio. So if you're planning on delivering video and audio during your shared presentation, find out what's best for that individual platform. For instance, in a WebEx environment, I could share a web page with YouTube's on it and just share it as a web page on here. But because now you're layering video and audio within video and audio on a platform, it may not be perfect in terms of sync. WebEx actually has a multimedia window option built within it that is designed to do that. Also, take some time and set the stage. You need to think about what the lighting is, how people are looking at you, what they are seeing. Consider audio, your backgrounds, other factors. Some platforms allow you to do blurred backgrounds or even put up pictures behind you. My personal opinion on that is I'm not a big fan of them, but you can use them as you want. The larger concern are considering the audio connection, possible sound distractions, and also the quality of the audio and visual equipment that you're using. A particular headset may have great audio quality. Your camera, particularly the ones that are in the laptops, not so much. Many of the laptops have mediocre camera quality. It's going to vary by brand and model, of course, but in general, using some external hardware will get you a better experience. Right now, I'm talking to you on a 1080p Logitech camera that is pretty good quality. Actually has a microphone built into it, but I've opted to use my Bluetooth headset because I know the quality of that is very good in general. So consider all of those factors. Just don't make the assumption that it is an issue with the application that you're using or the connection that you're using. All of those are factors, but quite often it's the same adage of if you pump in garbage, you're going to get garbage out. So be aware of that. And define how your attendees are going to receive their invitation or your sign up in clear terms and processes. Calendar invites are great. A web page base is great, but make it proof that people can go through the process and either sign up and register or save the link, find out the best way, and test it out on potential attendees to see if their invitation they're receiving is clear, and make sure that your process is working. And is there a follow quiz, question, or survey? You want to make sure that you clearly understand how you're going to deliver that, how you're going to collect that information. Is it going to be a survey or a questionnaire that's part of the session and be asked for in there? Are you going to send put a link out to attendees post the meeting, or just include it in the actual chat window of the system that you're in? And this one is even more important: practice. Everybody, I hear this constantly, not everybody, but I hear this constantly at the university. I went to have a meeting at 10 o'clock and I was going to do it with my class or this group or that group, and I had problems. There is a certain amount of preparedness that needs to be done here, and practice should be part of that. Know how you're going to lay out the screen. Know how you're going to deliver it. And do the entire setup with some volunteers. Get a test session with some volunteers and staff. Doesn't matter. Ask how it looks. How does it present? Is the message coming across? And then adjust the setting, your video background, your audio, your lighting, the content, and the expectations that you have for people to interact with you. And then adjust the plan. And then finally, the last piece, perform to your plan. Work to a script. Be prepared for unknowns. My personal process is that I have a specific way that I set up the room. I make a PowerPoint like this in advance. I keep some notes off to the side. I actually have another screen to the side in which I'm seeing my notes of things that I want to talk about. And as much as possible, I try and be prepared for what I'm going to encounter during the course of the meeting. And the quick question on that we got there, which Logitech camera I use, it is a Logitech CS790, I believe, or 970. I'll put a link in there out there for that, but it's been a really great camera, and these can be gotten for $75 from everywhere. Let's see here. We'll go on to the next page. Now, prior to a meeting, and these are general tips here. This is not specific to any particular platform. Okay, test your meeting connections. Make sure that your connection, whether wired or wireless, is a stable, solid connection. Be aware of other things utilizing that connection. This is particularly important in the home now, where many of us are. You may have people who are watching Netflix or Hulu or also remote working. My daughter was home for this past several days of the week from her place in Boston, and she was working online with me at the same time. These are things that we need to be aware of, how much bandwidth is being used. And start your online meeting several minutes before the meeting start time. This is a habit that I am always in. I usually start at least 10 minutes before, and I usually limit the meeting to not letting anybody sign in until 5 minutes before. It gives me a time to get in, make sure my settings are good, my equipment is working, and also have a backup plan in case you have trouble with remote participants. It may be such as simple as, connecting over a telephone line or going through an online collaboration tool like Google Docs. It's going to vary what your backup plans could and should be based on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to collaborate and work together on documents, maybe a telephone line and a Google Drive shared document or a OneDrive shared document are the best way for you to have us a backup. During a meeting, and this first one is one I'm a little iffy on. Have all participants share their video and audio, no lurkers. I personally find that it should be limited to what is necessary in order for you to function during the meeting, to keep down the distractions as much as possible. If you're going to be doing all audio and video for everybody, make sure they can see everybody as appropriate. Now, that's as appropriate is a big one. Most platforms, I know WebEx does, give you the ability to even more granularly limit what participants can see and do. Some of the faculty that I've worked with, I've actually shown them how they can set up the meeting that has 25 students in it, but they can only see themselves and the host. They can't see anybody else in the participants list. They can't chat with anybody else. You can restrict what they can do and how they can participate in space in order to minimize distractions. Having 25 or 30 18 to 22-year-olds in one room and they can all chat privately to one another and back and forth and see each other can be quite distracting on many fronts. If you're in a conference room, look at your microphones, make sure that the audio is picked up, things are distributed correctly, and this is a big one. Work with lighting. Make sure that you have lighting that is focused in on you so that people can see you properly, and have people mute their microphones. And a big thing that people forget about lighting is what you are wearing. Don't wear stripes. Don't wear things with strange patterns in it. I'm a fan of Hawaiian shirts. I've got a whole bunch of them, but I deliberately this morning knew I was talking to all of you folks in this setting, so I put on a simple white shirt just to keep all of the distractions, because the video, actually, when you have stripes and those kind of things and people move around side to side, it can actually get a little wonky. Now, during a meeting, if possible, particularly if it's a big meeting, and I consider that anything more than about 90 or 100 people, have a meeting facilitator. Basically, this is somebody who is concentrating in on the space and the room. This could be anything from a coworker to someone who's a trusted student, a grad student, or however you deem that. But that particular facilitator can be the one who is looking for cues like a raised hand in the platform, or somebody who's monitoring the chat. The whole idea here is with a larger group of people, there is more possibility for input and more possibility for distractions to you as a presenter. You really want to keep yourself or whoever is presenting focused in on the message they're trying to deliver to the course materials. This is a very good way to actually involve some students in working and actually paying more attention. Some people I know have done senior students as facilitators or grad students as facilitators, or even done rotating thing with students to say, okay, your job as a facilitator for this week is to feed me the questions and that kind of thing. And limiting side conversations, that is related to what I was talking regarding keeping people muted and limiting their chat. With most systems, you have a varying levels of granularity of what you can do to people. In a WebEx meeting such as this, I can limit virtually everything up to and including throwing people out of the room if I needed to. So it's a very useful way to set the stage. It all comes down to setting the stage. Now, if you're working remotely, there are some simple things you can do to improve a video conference. Everybody works wirelessly on everything. If it is at all possible for you to have a wired Ethernet jack, particularly in office spaces, take advantage of that. Wired is going to be a more stable connection, and it will be a faster connection than any other wireless that you have. Now, I know realistically that's just not always possible, but if it's there, avail yourself of it. And as I had mentioned, make sure you know what's going on your network if you are home. There could be things going on that are just taking over bandwidth from you and disturbing the process. Also, if you're working on a laptop, plug it in. Battery use can affect video quality. Most people don't realize that the laptops actually reduce brightness on screen, reduce processing power when you're running only on batteries. They do this deliberately as an energy saving, as a battery life saving process. Plug it in. You're going to get more out of it, and it's going to be capable of much more. You also can go and test the connection before the call. I strongly recommend this. You can go to Zoom and to WebEx and other places and test your connection. There's also a site to test your connection speed in general. Speedtest.net, I believe, is one of them. I didn't put it on the screen here. But if you just Google test my internet speed, you'll find a bunch of them. And you can see how well your internet speed is and if you're having issues with it. And from there, you could evaluate talking to your ISP or looking at your equipment. The next one seems kind of sensible. Make sure you have your camera, microphone, and headphones available. Try and use headsets when you can. They're going to have noise cancellation typically. They're going to pick up, they're not going to pick up background noises and disturbances. A lot of the laptops, they have headphone jacks, microphones, and they're all built in, and a lot of people just flip open their laptop and they use the microphone and speakers that are there. That will work, and I've been doing it, but you are more prone to loopback feed because the speakers and the microphone are so close together. A headset or something similar to that will generally give you a better audio experience. Next, you want to be aware of your surroundings, how you appear visually. We talked about parts of this. Make sure there isn't somebody outside of your house jackhammering the street. If they are, well, then you might not want to have that host a meeting right then and there. Control the lighting. I even talked about this already. Neutral, solid color clothing. Avoid black, white, or striped clothing. Look, he's wearing white anyway. Be aware of your behavior. You're on a video conference. People can see what you are doing. You want to avoid changing your clothes or picking your nose or anything along the line that just you wouldn't do in a room full of people that you were meeting with. And also, be aware that IT, URI IT, we cannot troubleshoot remote connections in non-URI locations. We can look at your laptop or your desktop. We can even connect to it remotely, and with your permission, we can poke around and look at things. But there are many elements of the equipment and configuration in your house. You could have Cox, you could have Verizon, you could have Comcast or whatever. And you could have routers and switches and such that are affecting that. It's almost impossible for us to diagnose all of that stuff. So be aware of that, please. And when you get an invite on video conferencing, read the instructions. Look at the backup phone number. This video conference right now has a backup telephone number. If for some reason your computer headsets weren't working, all of you have the ability to go up to your menu where it says audio and change the audio connection type and do a dial-in with a telephone. That is the lion's share of what I wanted to talk about. I kept it very generic, and that was done on purpose. But what I'd like to do is to open the floor, and if anybody has any questions regarding specifics or specific hardware and item and things that you would like to review about how issues you're having, I'd be happy to talk about them. But the whole purpose of this was not to go into direct specifics on any individual platform, but to talk about which are the best ones that you can use. And my Logitech camera, to more fully, is a CS930, which includes a microphone built into it too, if you wish that. You mentioned that there is a share multimedia option. Can you explain that? Yes, I'm going to change my share and change this to my share meeting window. So what you are seeing now is how I, as a host, am seeing my meeting window. And as long as I'm here, I'll talk about other things in WebEx too that I can share with you. First, the share multimedia actually opens up a link location that gives you a link to, and the participants a link to the actual video that you want to do, if it's a web page or a YouTube or something like that. It would open up as a separate box. I'm not going to do it right now because it'll prove distracting. But what it does is it gives each user the ability to start and stop and watch the video on their own timeline rather than sit there and watch it that way. Give it a try. There are some good things about it. There are some things that perhaps aren't optimal, but you can still share in the video window, share in the normal window. But when you do that, be sure when you click the share button that you change optimize for motion and video before you go and share the full screen or the video the way you want to. Karen, I'm going to get to your lighting, and I'll talk about that in a minute. First, I want to go over some particulars regarding what can be done in a WebEx as long as we're here and we have a little extra time. As the host in a WebEx, you will have the permissions to be able to assign privileges to individuals. Now, in a WebEx setting, and you can do this to varying degrees, I can go in and stop people from chatting. In fact, I'm going to close this because I want you to see if I can right-click and assign privileges on somebody else. That I can do this individually. For instance, if Carolyn was being difficult, I could actually stop her from chatting with everybody. But I could also do it for everybody. And I can go over here and say, Carolyn can't see the participants list anymore, or she can see, or I can do this for everybody and turn off their ability to see the participants list. There's also the ability to go into the meeting and actually stop people from turning on their video cameras entirely. Okay, so there's a lot of granularity in this particular system. Other systems will have some capabilities as well. Lighting. The best results for lighting is the same as you would for regular photography. Have the lighting in front of you so it's coming off your face. Unfortunately, glasses like the ones I'm wearing do have some reflection capability that's going on, and there's not a heck of a lot you can do that except for changing the angle of the lighting. If you have backlight, and this is a common thing, people will be in a room or an office and they have strong lighting coming behind them. That actually washes out what the camera is seeing. You basically get a halo or only seeing parts of them. You want to follow the exact same lighting rules that you would want to for flash photography or anything else. I hope that helps. In terms of the Logitech camera or mic providing better audio than a desktop camera mic, depends what you mean by a desktop camera. Desktop mic. The ones in laptops, yes, it does, because it's got noise canceling built into it, and laptops can vary. It's just a matter of what works best. Now, I find that what you get in terms of audio quality, mic input and output, is a very big variable depending on what the hardware is. So try and get some decent stuff. Like I said, the Logitech CS930, I think it's the E model, is what I've been using for a couple of years now. It's inexpensive. It's really reliable. The headset I'm on is a Jabra Bluetooth headset, but there are a variety of those that can be used too. Some people go as simple as using earbuds with a built-in line mic. So that's about as simple as it gets. If you're showing a PowerPoint that has embedded video, will the videos play? Yes. But that brings us back to this point. Optimize for motion and video. Embedded videos inside of an application are always somewhat problematic, but when you have video inside a video, it can absolutely do it. I've done it multiple times, but it's going to vary depending on the how high res it is, how much system resources it's pulling. This all goes back to the 3 Ps, right? You know you want to do a PowerPoint with a video in it, set up a test. Throw it up there and have a couple of friends look at it and see how it plays out. That will pay dividends to you. You'll be more comfortable and confident in what you're doing, and you're going to, in the end, put out a better product to everybody. How do I have an image pop up on my screen while I'm lecturing? I'm not sure exactly what that means, but how do I have an image pop up on my screen while I'm lecturing? I'm not sure what you mean, but the easiest way to go that route is to, instead of sharing an action, if you want to show a graph, okay. The easiest way to probably cover what you're talking about is, instead of sharing an application or a document, share your whole screen. So in essence, whatever is on that computer screen is going to go out to the world. It's the easiest way to share. It's the least cumbersome, and it lets you transition from apps to pop-ups to programs and lots of things. Whatever is on your screen is going to go out. Now, that could also be a bad thing, because you could have stuff that you don't want people to see if you don't want them to see your email and stuff. That brings us back to setting the stage. If you know you're going to be sharing your whole screen, close off all the other stuff you don't want folks to see. You can show just that app, but it's all part of planning it out. To share videos and film clips, is WebEx or Zoom better? Depends on the method. I am not a Zoom expert. We have just gotten the license, and we're starting the configuration today. So we're going to be putting together tech and support materials on that. I have actually not as yet seen video shared on Zoom. I do have a lot more confidence in WebEx, although I like Zoom, but WebEx has a lot more granularity of control and a much larger organization behind it. I can't answer which is better, WebEx or Zoom. We're going to be giving you both. You'll have the ability to try both. So hopefully you can come through your testing, come to a conclusion, and if you get some feedback, I'd appreciate having it. Audio call-in feature via phone if a participant's video is dropped, for example. Is this backup feature pretty intuitive for them to reconnect? Yes, absolutely. You're seeing it on my screen up here. Everybody has the same. You go to audio connection, and you can actually click the call in and get the information right from here. One quick rule of thumb, if you have people who are having connection issues, turn off their video, because video is going to be the largest share of it. And if you turn that off, it'll make things work a little easier for people. It'll be less traffic coming through across their particular paths. Any other questions that we have? I'm going to put my video up here. And I'm going to tilt it down a little because I moved it while we were playing with it. The call-in feature works nicely. One thing to know, though, is that they're not toll-free numbers. The number is going to be a toll call for people. It isn't much of an issue. We actually don't even see very many people using the call-in numbers any longer. Everybody's computer audio has gotten pretty ubiquitous. So, you know, there's a lot of capabilities on the audio systems now. So it's just a matter of whether you need it or not. Let's see what else we have here. I've had students send me YouTubes where their visuals pop up while they speak. They don't switch any views. I want to avoid having to switch to my computer screen. That's a unique one. They have visuals pop up while they speak. They don't switch any views. That might have something to do with YouTube's commercial aspect of it, and some of the stuff is ad-sponsored. I'd have to see one of those, Christine, specifically to be able to say why or how it's doing it. I can't guarantee I'll be able to figure it out entirely. To have a participant share a document or screen, do I have to make that person the host? No, and you're asking a very WebEx specific thing. I can make anyone a presenter at will. I am the host. I retain the host. In fact, if I leave this meeting without appointing another person with an account to host, the meeting ends. I can make anyone a presenter that I wish, and I can pass it back and forth. Now we're getting into very specific questions regarding WebEx, and that speaks to one of the things that I had shown you about limiting. I'm going to share my screen, my meeting window again. When you came in, WebEx is designed to be a collaborative experience. If I had left this box checked, any of you could have started to share your documents at will and taken over the screen. That's by design in WebEx. It's designed that way so that this is a collaborative environment, but it also gives me the granularity to turn it off and to stop people from doing that. So, Thomas, yeah, I can let you present if that's what you want to, or anyone else. And you don't have to join this just from a computer. The invite has a telephone number in it too. Many people just join from a phone device. People use it as a calling bridge, that kind of thing. For instance, you can also tell how somebody's connected. If you look at my participants list over here, Larry's got a little headset. Well, as Linda's got, She's either on a she's not on a telephone call-in line, but she's on a tablet or a cell phone. So is Lyle. But as I scroll through, everybody else is on headsets. If somebody had called in, you'd see a little telephone headset next to them. So, okay, do we have any other questions at all from folks? I know this topic was fairly generic. That was by design. As long as we have a few minutes, if anybody wants to ask any specific questions about WebEx, since we're in this environment, I'll happily take that too. I see no hands raised and no new chats. Feel free to unmute yourself too if you just want to straight out ask a question or say something.
Hi, okay to ask verbally?
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. Hi. I'm curious whether the Zoom application that the university is going to download, will that have any additional security backups that the regular Zoom doesn't? I know it'll have full time. You want it to be cut off at 40 minutes, but will it be a little more secure?
Yes, it'll be HIPAA and FERPA compliant. These will be the pro-level accounts. It will support breakout rooms, which is the primary reason we got it. WebEx's breakout rooms aren't coming till late August, early September. So yes, and it will be part of the single sign-on portal, Microsoft Office portal implementation. We are doing some initial testing, and then there will be documentation and support processes that will come out over the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. That's very reassuring. I love WebEx, but it seems like some people put up rooms only with Zoom, so it'd be good to have a secure one. Thank you.
Yeah, they're both good products. I personally think that WebEx, well, I don't just personally think it, I can demonstrate it, that WebEx is a better product because it has more granularity. It gives us the ability to hold larger events. Zoom does have some size limitations on how many people that it can have, but they serve their purposes. It's a matter of which ones you want to use. Does WebEx have a polling feature like Zoom? Absolutely. You're on my screen up here. You can go and you can open poll questions. You can predetermine what your poll questions are. You can put them in here. I'm not going to go into details about doing that now. It's a whole nother subject, but it absolutely lets you pre-prepare poll questions and deliver them. You mentioned Google Chat. How many can chat at the same time? Well, Google Chat and Google Hangouts, what they did is a temporary, during the pandemic, increase from the normal, I want to say 12 or 15 to 250, but they're going to scale that back down to the normal lines. It is best used for very small groups, or I even actually use it a couple, 3 times a day for just quick chats with somebody because it's integrated directly in to the Google Mail. I can actually see someone is online right now, and I can just click a button and initiate a quick chat. But I don't use it for document sharing or groups over just a small handful. Michelle had a question. Bob, I know his group got 300 plus that attended the Black Lives Matter discussion. There were issues with logging through WebEx. I don't know particulars of that. I attended that myself, if I recall, if that was the one with Carnell in it. I didn't have any issues getting in, and attendees don't log into WebEx. They just identify. For instance, when you came to this meeting and asked you your username, your email address, and a name that you wanted to be seen by, that wasn't logging you into WebEx. That's just an identifier during the meeting session. I don't know the specifics of what's happened during the Black Lives Matter discussion. But we can have up to 1,000 in this, and we have had meetings of several hundred, and I regularly do one of more than 100. I'd have to know more, particularly, Michelle, regarding what happened and what people saw in that specific instance. I think I heard a voice start to say something out there. Did I interrupt someone? Nope, I guess not.
Uh, Bob, I was
Yeah,
asking,
Thomas.
yeah, someone mentioned, which brought to mind about Zoom, the 40-minute limit. Is that still in place? Because obviously that would not work for most classes.
No, I believe that was a function of the free trial account that Zoom was doing.
Oh, okay.
The account that the university has gotten is the pro level account, and it's not going to have any of those limitations.
And so students would be able to access that without a fee. Is that true?
As I understand it, yes.
Okay.
All the students have access to WebEx too. You realize that, right? They all have the same level accounts that you do.
I used that last semester, and it worked fairly well.
There's a lot of different things you can do regardless of the platform that you do. You can have students who do study groups that way. Virtual office hours is a big one that I suggest to people all the time. The rooms in whatever platform, Zoom or WebEx, you can lock them down, password protect them. You can do all that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of, you have a whole toolbox of stuff. It's just a matter of figuring out what are the right tools and what are the correct methodologies for you to deliver what you want to deliver.
And while I have you, could you just clarify the difference between your one's personal room, which you can host a meeting from, or just the general, setting up a general meeting?
Yep. From the difference between a personal room and a general, let's call it a scheduled room for ease of conversation. From a technical perspective, they're identical. They have the same capabilities, the same structure, the same sharing. There is no difference in them, the same limits. The difference with the personal room is it's the same link all the time. My personal room is rody.webex.com/meet/my username, which is Viens in this case. Yours would be a similar format to that. Now, I can hold my meetings in my personal room and not require a password, or I could put one on it. And the scheduled rooms do require a passroom in order to stop some of the stuff that went on in Zoom world that we all heard in the media, because that hasn't happened in WebEx land because they've required passwords for a long time. But in terms of operationally, there is no difference whatsoever in what each room can do or in the number of people who can attend it.
Okay, thanks.
It's a convenience item more than anything. How do we involve all students to a WebEx meeting? I only know how to add each mail address individually, 90+ email. There must be a simpler way. Sure. There's several different ways. And I'm going to be testing later this week the Zoom integration with the calendar. There is a Google Calendar integration you can do for Zoom. That will make it much simpler. You can invite them the same way. Or you can do a simple copy and paste of a text file into the address line. It's comma delimited. You put it together the way it is and just copy and paste it and bring it right in. There's multiple ways to do it based on how you want to work with the students and how you want to interact with them. I do see a follow-up question. It's a hard balance between student privacy and interactions among students. Can WebEx display only students' first name followed by first letter of last names? Well, if they have a host account, the answer is no. But how they identify when they come into a meeting is up to them. They're not required to put in their WebEx ID. They could put in Mickey Mouse and an email address for all we care. So it's just a matter of them defining, and when you came into this meeting, you clicked on a link, and if you had already logged into WebEx, it assumed you wanted to use that, but you could have identified as whatever you wanted to be. If classes are going to meet synchronously online, why wouldn't students automatically be able to go to class on Brightspace? I'm not certain what you mean on that. Do you mean go to class on Brightspace, click a link from their Brightspace to go to whatever video conference session is going? I'm not certain on what you mean exactly by that, John. I am not a Brightspace expert. I would refer you to some of those folks, but I would assume that a link to somebody's room or a meeting session can be placed into Brightspace, and by clicking on it, they can be taken to that room. Sure. I doubt that that's a sufficient answer, but I'm going to see if we can, at some point down the road, if we can present that question to like Lisa Chen and Michelle Rogers and the Brightspace folks. There is integration between WebEx, and I believe that they're doing it now for Zoom within Brightspace. It is my understanding that they will be able to click on a link from the Brightspace class as you've set it up and go directly into a meeting space. Yes, I think that perhaps I understand the question more now, John.